Continue with the Ayodhya Kanda of the Tulsidas Ramcharitamanas. With Lord Shiva as my witness, I speak the truth in good faith, Bharata. The earth is being sustained by you. Pray do not indulge in wrong hypotheses about yourself for nothing, my darling. Hatred and love cannot be disguised, even if one tries to conceal them. Birds and beasts draw close to hermits, while they run away at the very sight of a hunter who torments them. Even beasts and birds can distinguish between a friend and a foe, to say nothing of the human body, which is a storehouse of virtue and knowledge. I know you full well, dear brother, but what am I to do? There is great perplexity in my mind. The king, our father, you know, kept his word and abandoned me. Nay, he gave up his life in order to keep his vow of love. I feel perturbed in my mind if I proceed to violate his word, and my scruple on your account is even greater. On top of it, my preceptor has given his command to me. In any case, I am prepared to do precisely what you suggest. With a cheerful heart and shaking off all scruple, tell me what to do, and I will accomplish it this very day. The assembly rejoiced to hear these words of Sri Rama, the chief of Raghu's line, who was ever true to his word. Indra, the king of celestials, and the hosts of other gods trembled with fear and felt perturbed at the thought that their whole scheme was going to miscarry. They were completely at a loss what to do. At last they mentally approached Sri Rama for protection. Again they deliberated with one another and said that the Lord of Raghus was under the spell of the devotion and of his devotees. Remembering the story of Ambadrisha and Durvasa, the gods as well as their lord Indra became utterly despondent. In the past too, the gods suffered for a long time, till at last it was Prahlada who revealed Lord Nrsimha. Beating their head, they whispered into one another's ear, "The gods' interests now lie in Bharata's hands. We see no other remedy, O gods. Our only hope is that Sri Rama acknowledges the services rendered to his noble servants. Do you all, therefore, invoke with a loving heart Bharata, who has won over Sri Rama by his goodness and amiability." When the preceptor of the gods, the sage Brihaspati, heard of the gods' intention, he said, "Good, your luck is great. Devotion to Bharata's feet is the root of all choice blessings in this world." The service of a devotee of Sita's Lord is as good as 100 cows of plenty, meaning it fulfills all one's desires. Now that devotion to Bharata has appealed to your mind, worry no more, for God has accomplished your object. See Bharata's greatness, O King of gods. The Lord of Raghus is completely under his sway as a matter of course. Knowing Bharata to be Sri Rama's shadow, make your mind easy. O gods, there is no cause for fear. The Lord, who has access to all hearts, felt uncomfortable when he came to know of the conference between the gods and their preceptor, the sage Brihaspati, and the anxiety of the former. Bharata now felt in his heart that the whole responsibility rested on his shoulders. He, therefore, entertained in his mind propositions of innumerable kinds. After much deliberation, he came to the conclusion that his welfare consisted in obeying Sri Rama. He has kept my vow, relinquishing his own, and has thereby shown not a little kindness and love. Sita's Lord has done me a great and unbounded favor in every way. Then, bowing his head and joining his lotus hands, Bharata said, "What shall I say or put into others' mouth, my lord, an ocean of compassion, and the knower of all hearts that you are. Now that my Guru is pleased, and my master, yourself, propitious, the torment, which was the creation of my foul mind, is over. I was obsessed with imaginary fears, and my anxiety had no foundation whatsoever. It is no fault of the sun if anyone mistakes the quarters. My own ill luck, my mother's perversity, the odd ways of providence and the cruelty of fate, all conspired with the avowed object of ruining me. But you came to my rescue by redeeming your vow of protecting your devotees, a protector of the suppliant that you are. This is, however, no novel procedure for you. It is well known to the world, as well as to the Vedas, and is an open secret. If the whole world is hostile, and you alone are kindly disposed, my lord, tell me, through whose goodness, if not through yours, can one's good be accomplished? My lord, you are of the same disposition as the tree of paradise. It is neither for nor against anyone. Should anyone approach the tree of paradise recognizing it as such, its very shade relieves all anxiety. And as anyone in this world obtains the desired object on the mere asking, be they a prince or a pauper, good or bad. Since I have found my Guru and my master yourself affectionate to me in every way, my unrest has gone, and I have no doubt left in my mind. Now, O mind of compassion, take steps to see that you do not feel perturbed for the sake of your servant. A servant who seeks his own gain by placing his master in an embarrassing situation is a mean-minded fellow. A servant will gain only if they serve their master, renouncing all their personal comforts and greed. If, my lord, you return to Ayodhya, everyone will be a gainer, and if we obey your orders, we shall gain in millions of ways. Obedience to you constitutes the highest gain both materially and spiritually. Nay, it is the consummation of all meritorious acts and the ornament of all good destinies. My lord, listen to a request of mine and then do as you deem fit. I have brought with me, duty arranged, all of the requisites for the coronation ceremony. Kindly have it brought into use, my lord, if it so pleases you. Send me into exile with my younger brother Shatrughna, and let everybody feel secure under your protection. Or else, send back both the younger brothers, Lakshmana and Shatrughna, and let me accompany you, my lord. Or, as a third alternative, we three brothers may remain in the forest, while Sita and yourself may return to Ayodhya. Do that, O ocean of mercy, which may please your heart, my lord. You have thrown the whole burden on me, my master, but I have no ethical insight nor any idea of religion. I am actuated by self-interest in whatever I say. A man in distress loses his senses. Shame herself would be ashamed to look at a servant who evades compliance with an order given by his master. Even though I am such an unfathomable ocean of faults, my master, yourself, out of affection for me, praises me a noble soul. Now, O merciful one, I will submit to that proposition, which will spare my lord an awkward situation. Swearing by my lord's feet, I tell you in good faith that this is the only way to ensure the happiness of the world. Each one of us will reverently carry out the orders that the Lord may be pleased to give with a cheerful heart and without reserve, and all injustice and imbroglio will end. The gods rejoiced to hear Bharata's guileless speech, and acclaiming them in the words, "Well done," they rained down flowers. The people of Ayodhya felt much puzzled, while the ascetics and the foresters were greatly delighted. The Lord of Raghus, who was very considerate by nature, kept mum, and observing his silence, the whole assembly felt perturbed. That very moment, messengers from King Janaka arrived. When the sage Vasishta heard of it, he sent for them promptly. After making obeisance, they looked at Sri Rama and were much grieved to behold his attire, which resembled that of a hermit. The chief of sages, Vasishta, made enquiries from the messengers. Tell me if all is well with King Videha, Janaka." The noble messengers felt abashed to hear this. They bowed their head to the ground and replied with joined palms, "Your loving inquiry itself, O Lord, has proved conducive to our good, holy sir. Otherwise, our welfare, O Lord, passed away with the king of Kosala, whose death has left the whole world, particularly Mithila, Janaka's capital, and Ayodhya, masterless." On hearing of the demise of King Dasharatha, the lord of Ayodhya, the people of Janakapura were all mad with grief. No one who saw King Videha at that time took his name, Videha, to have any truth behind it. When the king heard of Queen Kaikeyi's wickedness, he was as nonplussed as a serpent without its gem. Prince Bharata, crowned king and the chief of Raghus, Sri Rama, exiled into the woods. The news caused deep anguish into the heart of Mithila's lord. The king called together a council of wise men and ministers and said, "Tell me, after careful deliberation, what ought to be done now?" But realizing the conditions at Ayodhya and the difficulty in either case, nobody gave any definite opinion whether he should go or stay at home. The king now collected himself and after calm reflection dispatched 4 clever spies to Ayodhya with the following instruction: "Ascertain whether Bharata means well or ill and come back at once without being recognized." The spies went to Ayodhya and having ascertained Bharata's ways and seen his doings, they proceeded back to Tirahuta, Mithila, the moment the latter left for Chitrakuta. The spies on their arrival gave an account in Janaka's court of Bharata's doings as best as they could. The Guru, the Sheshatananda, the members of the royal family, the ministers, and the king himself were all overpowered with grief and affection at the report. Then, collecting himself and glorifying Bharata, the king summoned his chosen warriors and equerries, and, posting guards at the palaces, city, and realm, got ready a number of horses, elephants, chariots, and other conveyances. After ascertaining as auspio of 48 minutes, he started at once and did not halt on the way. Having bathed at Prayaga this very morning, he has already left the place, and when the whole party began to cross the Yamuna, they dispatched us ahead for obtaining news, holy sir. So saying, they bowed their head to the ground. The great sage Vasishta dismissed the messengers at once, sending with them an escort of 6 or 7 kiratas. The people of Ayodhya were all delighted to hear of Janaka's arrival. Sri Rama, the defender of Raghus, the delighter of Raghus, felt very uncomfortable, while Indra, the king of celestials, was particularly overwhelmed with anxiety. The malevolent Kaikeyi was writhing with remorse. To whom should she speak out her mind, and whom could she blame? The people, on the other hand, rejoiced to think that their stay was ensured for some days more. In this way, that day too was spent. The next morning, everyone proceeded to bathe, and after their ablutions, the men and women worshipped Lord Ganesha, Goddess Gauri, Shiva's consort, Bhagavan Shiva, the slayer of the demon Tripura, and the sun god, the dispeller of darkness. Again, they reverenced the feet of Bhagavan Vishnu, the lord of Lakshmi, and prayed. The men raising their joined palms, the women holding out the skirt of their garment. With Sri Rama, our king, and Sita, Janaka's daughter, our queen, may our capital Ayodhya be gloriously repeopled with its various communities and grow to be the very culmination of joy. And may Sri Rama install Bharata as the crown prince. Bathing all in the nectar of this bliss, let everyone, O Lord, reap the reward of his existence in this world. May Sri Rama rule over the city, assisted by his Guru, counselors, and brothers. And may we die in Ayodhya with Sri Rama as still our king. This was what everyone asked in prayer. Hearing the affectionate words of his citizens, even enlightened sages talked disparagingly of yoga, asceticism, and dispassion. Having thus performed their daily devotions, the citizens made obeisance to Sri Rama with a thrill of joy. Men and women of every rank, high, low, or middling, were blessed with his sight according to their own conception. Sri Rama scrupulously honored all, and everyone praised the storehouse of compassion in the following words. From his very boyhood, it has been Sri Rama's wont to observe the rules of propriety, duty of recognizing the love one cherishes towards him. With a lovely and cheerful countenance, gracious looks, and a guileless disposition, the Lord of Raghus is an ocean of amiability and modesty. Thus recounting the virtues of Sri Rama, they were all overwhelmed with emotion and began to extol their good fortune. There are few people in the world as meritorious as we, whom Sri Rama recognizes as his own. All were absorbed in love at that time. Presently, on hearing of the approach of King Janaka, the lord of Mithila, Sri Rama, who was a veritable son to the lotus-like solar race, and the whole assembly rose in a hurry to receive him. The Lord of Raghus led the way, accompanied by his younger brothers, the minister Samantra, the Guru Vasishta, and the citizens. The moment the Lord of Janakas espied the great hill of Kamadanatha, he made obeisance to it and dismounted from his car. Seized as they were with a longing and eagerness to see Sri Rama, none of the party felt the least toil or hardship of the journey, for their mind was with the chief of Raghus and Vaidehi, Janaka's daughter. And when the mind is elsewhere, who will feel the bodily pain or pleasure? In this way, Janaka came advancing with his party, their mind intoxicated with love. When the two parties drew near and saw one another, they were overwhelmed with love and began to exchange greetings with due respect. King Janaka proceeded to adore the feet of the hermits who hailed from Ayodhya, while Sri Rama, the delighter of Raghus, made obeisance to the sages who accompanied Janaka. Sri Rama and his younger brothers then greeted the king, their father-in-law, and led him with the whole party to his hermitage. Sri Rama's heritage was an ocean, as it were, overflowing with the sacred water of quietism, while the host that accompanied Janaka was, as it were, a river of pathos, which the Lord of Raghus was now conducting to the ocean of his hermitage. The river flooded the banks of wisdom and dispassion, and was joined in its course by tributary streams and rivulets in the form of sorrowful utterances. Sighs and lamentation severally represented the waves and the wind that uprooted the stout tree of fortitude standing on its banks. It had deep sorrow for its swift current, while fear and delusion constituted its numberless eddies and whirlpools. Boatmen in the form of the learned waited with big boats in the form of their learning, but they were unable to row them because they had no idea of its depth. The kolas and kiratas that roamed about in the woods were the poor wayfarers who had lost heart at the sight of the turbulent stream and stood aghast. When the stream joined the ocean of the hermitage, the latter too surged up, as it were, with emotion. The two royal hosts were so excited with grief that they had no sense, fortitude, or shame left. Extolling King Dasharatha's comeliness of form, goodness, and amiability, they all wept and were plunged into an ocean of woe. Plunged into the ocean of grief, the men and women lamented in great anguish. They all angrily and reproachfully exclaimed, "Alas, what has cruel fate done? Of the gods, accomplished saints, ascetics, yogis, mystics, and anchorites, whoever witnessed the condition of Janaka on that occasion, none," says Tulasidas, "was capable of enough to cross the river of love to escape being drowned in it." Here and there, the great sages admonished people in numberless ways, and the sage Vasishta said to Videha, "Be consoled, O king. Can the darkness of infatuation and attachment ever approach him, King Janaka, the sun of whose wisdom drives away the night of metempsychosis, and the rays of whose speech delight the lotus-like sages? that he too was plunged in grief shows the triumph of the affection he bore for his daughter Sita and her lord Sri Rama. According to the Vedas, there are three types of embodied soul or human beings in the world: the sensual, the seeker, and the wise who have attained perfection in the form of God realization. Of all these, he alone is highly honored in an assembly of holy men, whose heart is sweetened by love for Sri Rama. Wisdom without love for Sri Rama is imperfect, like a vessel without the helmsman. The sage Vasishta admonished King Videha in many ways. And now, all the people bathe at the gut associated with the name of Sri Rama, who generally bathed and said his prayers there. All the women and men were so overwhelmed with grief that the day passed without anyone taking a drop of water. Even the cattle, birds, and deer remained without food, to say nothing of Sri Rama's near and dear ones. At daybreak, both King Janaka, the lord of Nimis, and Sri Rama, the lord of Raghus, bathed with all the retinue and sat under the banyan tree, sad at heart and wasted in body. The Brahmanas who hailed from King Dasharatha's capital, Ayodhya, as well as those who came from King Janaka's capital, Mithila, and even so Vasishta, the preceptor of the solar race, and Chatananda, the family priest of King Janaka, who had explored the way to worldly prosperity as well as the path leading to blessedness, gave discourse containing righteousness, ethics, dispassion, and discrimination. The sage Vishwamitra, a descendant of Kushika, eloquently admonished the entire assembly with many a reference to ancient legends, till the lord of Raghu said to him, "Everyone, my lord, has remained without water since yesterday." Said the sage, "What the lord of Raghu says is quite reasonable. It is already past noon, even today." Perceiving what was in the mind of the sage Vishwamitra, the king of Tirahuta, Mithila, replied, "It will not be proper to take cereals here." The king's reasonable reply pleased all, and having received the sage's permission, they proceeded to perform their midday ablutions. At that moment, the people of the forest, with large quantities of fruits, blossoms, leaves, and roots of various kinds, loaded in their panniers. By the grace of Sri Rama, the hills yielded the objects of one's desire and dispelled one's sorrow by their very sight. The lakes, streams, woods, and other parts of the land overflowed, as it were, with joy and love. The trees and creepers were all laden with fruits and blossoms, while birds and bees and beasts made a melodious concert. The forest was bursting with joy at that time. A cool, soft, and fragrant breeze delighted everyone. The loveliness of the forest was past all telling. It seemed as if earth herself was showing her hospitality of King Janaka. In the meantime, all the citizens finished their ablutions, and receiving the permission of Sri Rama, King Janaka, and the sage Vasishta, they filled with love as they were selected suitable trees for them for their encampment, while leaves, fruits, roots, and bulbs of every description, pure, lovely, and delicious as ambrosia, were sent to all in basketfuls, with the due courtesy by Vasishta, Sri Rama's preceptor. And having worshipped the mains, the gods, the visitors, and the Guru, they began to partake of this holy repast. In this way, 4 days rolled by. The people, both men and women, were gratified to see Sri Rama. In both camps, the feeling uppermost in the heart of all was, it is not good to return without Sita and Rama. Living in exile in the woods with Sita and Sri Rama, one would be millions of times more happy than in Amaravati, the city of immortals. Leaving the company of Lakshmana, Sri Rama, and Sita, he who chooses to live at his home is not favored by providence. The privilege of living in close proximity to Sri Rama can be had only when God is propitious to us all. Bathing in the Mandakini thrice every day, the sight of Sri Rama, which is a perennial source of joy and blessedness, roaming about on the hill, associated with the name of Sri Rama, known as Kama Danata, and the forest adjoining the same, and among the hermitages of ascetics situated thereabout, and living on bulbs, roots, and fruits delicious like ambrosia. In this way, 4 years and 10 will be happily spent like a minute without our knowing it. We do not deserve this happiness, all exclaimed. Our luck is not like that. Such was the natural and spontaneous devotion to Sri Rama's feet in both the camps. In this way, all indulged in their own fancy. Their affectionate words were so charming to hear. In the meantime, Sita's mother, Queen Sunayana, dispatched her handmaids to King Dasharatha's queens, and perceiving that it was a convenient hour, they returned with that information. Having learnt that Sita's mothers-in-law were at the leisure of the ladies of King Janaka's gynecium, called on them. Queen Kaushalya, Sri Rama's mother, received them with due honor and courtesy, and offered them such seats as circumstances would permit. Nothing amiability and affection of all from both sides, and hearing them even as the thunderbolt could melt. With their body thrilling all over and overpowered by emotion and eyes full of tears, all began to sorrow and scratch the ground with the nails of their toes. They were all incarnations, as it were, of love for Sita and Sri Rama. It seemed as if Pathos herself mourned in so many forms. Said Sita's mother, the intellect of Providence is so perverse that he has thought fit to break up the foam of milk with a chisel of adamant. We hear of nectar but see only venom. All his doings are hard. Crows, owls, and herons are seen everywhere, but swans can be found in the Manasa lake alone. Hearing this, Queen Sumitra, Lakshmana's mother, sorrowfully observed, "The ways of Providence are most perverse and strange. He creates, maintains, and then destroys. God's designs are as silly as child's play." Said Kaushalya, "It is nobody's fault. Sorrow and joy, loss and gain are determined by our past actions. The inexorable ways of Providence are known to God alone, who dispenses all kinds of fruits, both good and evil. God's commands prevail over all, including the processes of creation, maintenance, and dissolution, and even over poison and nectar, which destroy and restore life respectively. It is no use lamenting, O good lady, out of infatuation. The doings of Providence are, as I have said, inevitable and eternal. If we mourn over the contrast, after considering the circumstances during the lifetime of King, after his demise, if we feel sorry, it is because of our interests suffered," Sita's mother replied. "Your noble words are quite true. A spouse that you are of Ayodhya's lord, who was the greatest of all virtuous souls known to history. If Lakshmana, Rama, and Sita stay in the forest, the end will be good, not bad. But," said Kausalya with a heart overwhelmed with emotion, "I am anxious about Bharata. By the grace of God, and through your blessing, my sons and daughters-in-law are all pure as the water of the celestial stream, Ganga. Although I have never sworn by Rama, I now swear by him and tell you in good faith, my friend, that in extolling Bharata's amiability, goodness, modesty, loftiness of character, brotherly affection, devotion, faith, and nobility of wit, of even Sharada, the goddess of speech, falters. Can the ocean be ladled out by means of an oyster shell? I have always known Bharata to be the glory of his house, and the king repeatedly told me so. Gold is tested by rubbing on the touchstone, and a precious stone on reaching the hands of an expert jeweler, while men are tested in times of emergency by their innate disposition. It was wrong on my part today to have spoken thus. But you know sorrow and affection leave one little reason." On hearing these words, pure as the water of the celestial river, all the queens were overwhelmed with affection. Kausalya collected herself and continued, "Listen, O venerable Queen of Mithila, who can advise you, the consort of King Janaka, who is an ocean of wisdom. Yet finding a suitable opportunity, O Queen, you may speak to the king as if on your own initiative and plead with him that Lakshmana may be detained and Bharata allowed to proceed to the forest. Should this proposal find favor with the king, let him do his utmost after due deliberation. I feel much concerned about Bharata, for the love in his heart is so profound that if he stays at home, I fear something untoward may happen to him. Perceiving Kausalya's pure love and hearing her guileless and eloquent appeal, all the queens were overwhelmed with the pathetic sentiment. There was a shower of flowers from heaven, accompanied by shouts of applause. Accomplished saints, yogis, mystics, and hermits were overpowered with emotion. All the ladies of the Gynecium were struck dumb to see this. Then, recovering herself, Sumitra interposed, "Madam, nearly an hour of the night has passed." Hearing this, Sri Rama's mother Kausalya courteously rose and said out of affection and goodwill, "Pray return quickly to your camp. Our only refuge now is God, and our only helper is the Lord of Mithila." Seeing her affection and hearing her polite words, Janaka's beloved queen, Sunayana, clasped Kausalya's holy feet. "Such modesty on your part, O venerable lady, is quite becoming of you. You, being King Dasharatha's spouse and Sri Rama's mother. Great men treat with honor even the lowest of their servants. Fire is crowned with smoke, while mountains bear grass on their tops. The king of Mithila is your servant in thought, word, and deed, while the great Lord Shiva and his consort Bhavani are your constant helpers. Who on this earth is worthy of serving as your auxiliary? Can an ordinary light ever pose with any grace as a helper of the sun? After serving the term of his exile in the woods and accomplishing the object of the gods, Sri Rama will reign undisturbed at Ayodhya and protected by Sri Rama's strength of arm. Gods, Nagas, and human beings will dwell peacefully in their own abodes. This has all been predicted by the sage Yajnavalkya, and a sage's prophecy, madam, can never go in vain." So saying, she fell at Kausalya's feet with the utmost affection and preferred her request for being allowed to take Sita with her. And having received Kausalya's kind permission, Sita's mother now left for camp with Sita. Videha's daughter, Sita, greeted her dear kinsfolk in the same manner as was befitting in each case. When they saw Janaki, Janaka's daughter, in the robes of an ascetic, everybody was stricken with deep sorrow. Receiving the permission of Sri Rama's preceptor, Vasishta, King Janaka too left for his camp and on arrival found Sita there. The king clasped Janaki to his bosom. Janaki, who was an honored guest of his unalloyed love and life. In his heart welled up an ocean of love, and the king's heart now appeared like the holy Prayaga, the immortal banyan tree in the shape of affection. For Sita was seen growing with the divine babe of love for Sri Rama adorning its top. The long-lived sage Markandeya, in the form of King Janaka's wisdom, was greatly bewildered and was just going to be drowned when, lo, he found his support in the divine babe and was saved. Really speaking, it was not that Videha's wit was lost in infatuation. It was the triumph of the affection that he bore for Sita and the chief of Raghus. Jagadanandaka 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 नन्दकारका जगदानन्दकारका जगदानन्दकारका जय जानकी प्राणनायका 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 जगदानन्दकारका जय जानकी प्राणनायका जगदानन्दकारका गगनाधिप सद्कुलच गगनाधिप सद्कुलच गगनाधिप सद्कुलच गगनाधिप सद्कुलच राजराजेश्वर गगनाधिप सद्कुलच राजराजेश्वर गगनाधिप सद्कुलच राजराजेश्वर सुगुणाकर सुरसेव्य भव्यदायक सदा सकल सुगुणाकर सुरसेव्य भव्यदायक सदा सकल जगदानन्दकारक जय जानकी प्राणनायका जगदानन्दकारका ससनि पम ससरि सममरि समम पमम पममरि समरि सस नि पमम प सनि नि सनि नि सनि प नि सनि प सनि पम नि पमरि पमरि स पप सनि पमरि सनि गम जगदानन्दकारका अमरतारक निचय कुमुदहित परिपूर्णानग सुर सुर पूजतधिपयो दिवासहरन सुन्दरतरवतन सुधामयवचो वृन्द गोविन्द सानन्दम वरचराप्त शुभकरानेक जगदानन्दकारक सनि पमनि पमरि सनि रे सनि प सनि सरि स प मनि प सनि परि रे स प सनि प म गम प प स सनि प मरि स सनि गम जगदानन्दकारक निगम नीरजामृत च पोषक निमिष भैरिवारिध समीरना खगतुरंग सत् कविहृदालय गणित वानराधिपनतांग्रियुग जगदानन्दकारक पनि पनि पम 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 ग ग म ग म रे स नि स ग म प पनि प स नि रे स म रे स नि प म ग म प स नि प प नि प म रे स स रे ग म जगदानन्दकारक इंद्रनीलमणि सन्निपाप घनचंद्र सूर्य नयना प्रवेय वागीन्द्र जनक शकलेश शुभ्र नागेन्द्र शयर शमन वैरि सन्नुत जगदानन्दकारक pani pa ma pani pa ma ni pa ma pani pa ma ma pa ma ga ma pani pa pa ni sa re sa sa pa pa ma re sa ni pa ma sa ni pa ni sa re sa ni pa ma Jagadananda Karaka Pana Vijita Mauni Shapa Sava Paripala Vara Mantra Grahana Lola Parama Shantra Chitta Janaka Janipa Sanoja Bhava Varada Akila Jagadananda Karaka Sapamari sapamaga pamaga mapani paga mapamaga pamari ipamari sane pamari risa pasa mapa rega mapa sane pama Jagadananda Karaka Srishti Sthityanta Karaka Mita Kamita Panana Samanaga Tajashi Patinuta Timanaranu Raga Raga Rajita Katha Sarahita Jagadananda Karaka Ani pari re sa mari sa pa pa mari sa ga ma pa ma ma ni pa pa ni sa re sa sa pa ma re sa ni pa re sa ni pa ma ni sa ni pa sa sa pa pa ma ga ma Jagadananda Karaka Sajjana Manasa Sudakara Kusuma Vimana Surasa Ripukarab Jalalita Charana Vaguna Suragana Manarana Sanatana Januta Jagadananda Karaka sa 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 ri sa ni pa pa sa sa ni pa ni sa ni pa ma ni sa 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 ri sa ni pa pa sa sa ni pa ni sa ni pa ma ri ni pa ma ri sa ni pa ma ri sa sa pa sa ni pa ma ri sa sa pa 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 ni sa ni ga ma ri ga ma pa ni pa sa sa ni pa sa sa ma ma ni sa ti ni sa pa ni ma pa ma ga ma Jagadananda Karaka Omkara Panjara Kira Purahara Saroja Bhava Keshava Omkara Panjara Kira Purahara Saroja Bhava Keshava Rupava Shavari Pujana Kantaka Kaladara Kalatarapta Grenakara Sharanagata Janapalan Shumanor Hamana Nidvikara Nigama Sharatara Jagadananda Karaka Papani papani papama pani pani papama pama ni pama sari pama pama gama pama risa pama risa ni pama risa sani pama risa pama pasari sa pani sarisa marisa pama risa ni pa pasani pa risa ni pa sama gama Jagadananda Karaka Ganida Guna Kalaka Chela Sara Vidulana Namazama Nacharana Paramahima Buddha Sukha Vijana Hritadana Sunamugina Kalaka Chira Vidicharamana Papa Gajana Simhavaratya Garaja Dinuta Jagadananda Karaka Jaya Janaki Prananayaka Jagadananda Karaka Thank you. The song was Jagadananda Karaka, masterpiece of Saint Tyagaraja. The meaning of the song is: the creator of happiness throughout the world, the beloved of Sita, victory be yours. The inheritor of Surya Vamsha, the solar dynasty, king of kings, you are worshipped by the Devas. You bestow good things for your devotees. Amidst the Devas, You are like the moon amidst the stars. You are flawless, like the Karpada Vriksha for the Devas. You steal the pots filled with curd and milk. You have a beautiful face. You say sweet words. You take care of the cows. You are the Lord of Goddess Lakshmi. You are filled with happiness. You are ever youthful and you help your beloved. You were brought up by the nectar from the lotus flowers, which are the Vedas. You are like the forceful wind that dispels the clouds, while you dispel the enemies of the Devas. You reside in the hearts of poets. Your feet are worshipped by innumerable kings of the monkeys. You have a body that is as bright as Lord Indra's blue gem. You have the sun and the moon as your eyes. You are the father of the great Brahma, whose greatness cannot even be imagined. You are all powerful. You rest on the serpent Adisesha. You are worshipped by Lord Shiva, who humbled Yama. You removed the curse of Gautama Rishi by the greatness of your feet. You guard the rituals of your devotees. You have learnt the two great mantras, Apala and Atipala. You granted boons to Brahma. You do the three jobs of creation, protection, and destruction. You fulfill numerous desires of your devotees. You are handsome, and there can be none equal to you. You are worshipped by Indra. You humble the pride of the ocean king. You are the essence of the Ramayana, which shines through its musical and bhakti content. You reside in the hearts of good people like the moon that rises in the sea. You have the Pushpaka Vimanam. Your feet are being touched by Hanuman's lotus hands that won over the demon Surasai. You control the bad-tempered demons. You are eternal. You are worshipped by the four-faced Brahma. You assume the form of Lord Shiva, who resides inside the Omkara form, Lord Brahma and Vishnu. You killed Ravana, the father of Indrajit. Lord Shiva, with the crescent-shaped moon on his head, likes you. You show mercy. You protect those who take refuge in you. You create happiness to good people. You are impartial. You are the essence of Vedas. You have an arrow in your hand. You control the anger of the demons. You protect the Devas and Brahmins. You have been praised by Valmiki, who is like a son among other poets. You are worshipped by Tyagaraja. You are the first person, son of the great king. You become slave to those who worship you. You killed Karan, Viradan, and Ramanan. You are sinless. You stole the heart of Parasharan. You are worshipped by Tyagaraja. You have good qualities. You wear pitambram, you split trees, and you have red feet. You have innumerable greatness. You reside in the hearts of great poets. You are the friend of devas and saints. You are the lord of Lakshmi, who came from the Parkana. You are the Narasimha who kills the elephants of sin. You are worshipped by bhaktas like Saint Tyagaraja. Thank you.